Welcome back. In this video I'm going to be doing a sketch of some Canada geese down at the coast. I'll be using pen and ink washes. And I'm just going to show you how close these geese live towards the water. We're right here at English Bay on the coast in Vancouver. And as I pan across, you can see there's a walkway, a promenade, some benches, and then these geese are right here in this green strip of land, and they live there, peck about, and there's quite a big flock of them there. So I had my sketchbook with me and I was trying to sketch them because you want to watch them moving, and of course they're constantly on the move. I'm not very good at drawing birds, but I certainly gave it a go, and I'll show you how that worked out. We can see the movement here. There's many different types of feathers, but you'll see these geese continuously are on the move. Okay, so back in my studio I did a quick test sketch here because I know that the head is basically black and white. So I'm trying to work with inks and learning as I go. I always say I'm a hobby artist. So here I just did a quick sketch on some scrap watercolor paper, and of the actual head I wetted it down, excluding the cheek because that is the distinctive feature, and then I tried to bleed the ink in straight away. This was quite messy and I realized my brush was way too big, but anyway, that was my first attempt on this journey about drawing the geese. Taking a closer look at the distinctive marks on these geese, they have these white cheeks that just are slightly different on each one. I don't know if they're a bit like whales where you can recognize geese by the slight difference in their cheeks. And they also have a variety of feathers. They've got like what I'm calling the back feathers, they've got the tail feathers, the underbelly feathers as well. So those back feathers have quite a bit of brown sheen to them, and they've got this sort of edge of white showing little curves going across the back. So I tried to take note of all of these little features in my attempts to draw these geese, and you'll see how that worked out in a moment. So here I am on my first double page spread for my Perpetual Nature Journal that I'm beginning. So because we're in May, it's my first month that I'll be doing. I'm just putting in a title page. I've got 2 double page spreads per month. So I just wrote in May there, and the idea is that I'm going to be drawing a couple of drawings of nature's theme drawings each month, and then next year I can come around again and put some more May pictures in. So I'm not going to fill the whole pages on May today. These were the actual little sketches that I made while I was sitting on the bench at the beach. I was using a 2H pencil. It was quite windy as the wind blew quite strongly off the sea. So I did quite a few little drawings there, trying to get the details on the head and the actual shape of the body. And I wouldn't say that I draw animals all the time. I certainly don't. So I was trying very hard to get this right. So then here in this, when I was back in my studio, I drew a more distinctive, and I took more time to make sure I got the lines right. They've got quite a prominent chest, quite a strong and underbelly, or chest, I suppose it's running through there, the breast of the bird. And I had a couple of goes at drawing. This one didn't quite look right. Somehow the tail feathers aren't there. But I continuously tried to work with the sketches I'd made in the field when I got back home. So eventually I decided I was going to do the 2 geese and that I'd sketched out, and I was going to put that in my Perpetual Nature Journal. This was the actual the setting, or the type of drawing I was going to do, and I was going to put it in the bottom right hand corner. Having another look there at that, my first attempt at doing some ink wash, which really was quite messy, but anyway, you've got to practice before you get any good. So now what I'm trying to do is to recreate this little twosome geese thing, little drawing in the bottom right hand corner. So I'm using a 2H pencil there and just gently sketching it out. So the real benefit of, there's a total difference between, I think, sketching in the field where the wind's blowing and the noise is happening with your little sketchbook, to actually when you get home you can reproduce things and make them neat and tidy. So in a way, this is why you really need more than one sketchbook, which I've come to discover recently. You've got your little outdoor field sketchbooks, maybe even 1 or 2, And then you've got perhaps your bigger, more at home sketchbooks where you can labor over the actual drawing and make it a labor of love as you're adding it onto your page. Another feature I noticed about these birds is that they seem to be wearing bloomers. They've got white fat fur coming down probably to their upper knee, and then skinny little black legs with knobbly knees, and then their great big black feet. So, you know, I'd never noticed this before, and this is one thing about doing nature journaling that I'm beginning to realize and enjoy, is that you really have to look at what you're seeing. You know, I've lived in Vancouver for over 8 years and seen these geese, but never really looked at them. I was struggling a little, so I went and pulled a perfect photo of a goose from the internet to just make sure that I'm on the right track. There are difficult things, and I was really trying to make it look as good as possible and not look like a cartoon goose. So that's where I then pulled out a reference photo to help me get the lines right, particularly on the neck, where the neck joins the body, and that front chest, which is really quite huge. I continued working on the sketch there for quite a while, and then erased several of the bits of lines. And now I came with the black pen. I'm using Faber-Castell. It's a 0.1 millimeter nib, and just trying to get the main outlines, the main features of these birds. So in the end, it does tend to look a little cartoony, but that's just the way I'm drawing it. I'm doing my best there, trying to get these shapes of these distinctive markings of these birds on the page, and then erasing all the last bits of pencil. Then I'm reaching for my black inks, and this is the point where I realized I've got two different bottles. One is waterproof and the other is not. So I do want the waterproof ink, because once I've drawn the lines in, I can then go over perhaps with a wash or watercolor if I want to, whereas the non-waterproof ink will, again, you can wet it and reactivate it. I'm still very new at learning painting with inks, and certainly there are many other YouTube videos you can watch to get all the ins and outs of this medium. I'm just dipping my brush straight in there. The brush is a little bit wet from water first and then going in. So I wanted to paint in, and now I've got a much smaller brush than I had to start with on that very first one. And I'm going in to paint up the neck of this goose, making sure I leave that white cheek part, which is the distinctive thing about these goose, and trying to control the ink so that it's not just flowing everywhere, although it really is tempting itself to do so. So I'm super new at nature journaling. This is my first month doing it. This is really my first sketch in my journal that I set up, my Perpetual Nature Journal. And also I'm trying to learn how to work with inks as well, because I am a hobby artist. I'm in no way a professional artist, but I enjoy the process. I enjoy creating, and I like the idea of having something worthwhile at the end. And that's why I decided to work with nature journaling. It's just something that I'd never even thought of doing previously. And because I live in a city, you wonder, well, where is the nature? Well, it's quite close by. It's everywhere you look. There's quite a few, I want to call them city birds we have here. We've got these Canada Geese. We also have pigeons everywhere, and there's a lot of crows. And again, I live here all the time. You don't really notice them, but now I'm starting to look at these animals that I'm seeing on a daily basis in the city. So next I've decided I'm going to do those back feathers with some gold ink, because I have it. I don't have any brown ink. I thought, well, let me do some gold ink. So here the brush is quite dry. I'm going in with a super fine brush now and just painting those back feathers, but trying to leave that curve of white at the edge of them, which is the distinctive feature of these birds. Turned out to be quite fiddly, which is fine. I do like to use a little bit of gold in most of my drawings, and those of you who follow me know that. And this seemed to be the ideal place to just put a little bit of sparkle on these birds, just on those back feathers. And really, it's encouraging me to go and read more about these birds and find out, what do you call these feathers? What do you call those feathers? And all the rest of it, because it is so interesting once you start paying attention to the nature around you. So I'm really enjoying building up and developing this little artwork here in my book. I'm using the Winsor & Newton inks, I've got some of the coloured inks as well now. I was talking about it last time. I went and got the pink, the red, the pink, the orange, the yellow, the green, and I'm really enjoying this medium. I've got a little bit more control than I did with watercolour, which tends to get away from me. So as a beginner ink person, I think I'm definitely going to be doing more ink work in the future. I just find it very satisfying to work with this medium. So for the softer underbelly feathers, which are generally a sort of beigey taupe, and because I'm trying to get clever with these inks, I decided to try and mix up a colour. So I've got some canary yellow in my little palette pan there, and in the pan below is some water, and I've added just a dash of the black, the most minuscule, not even a drop, less than a drop, just a whisker of the black into that, and I've watered it down quite well. So I'm ending up with a sort of, I'm calling it a taupey colour. So I can use it to paint off those under feathers, add a bit of shadow under the bird, but not the whole thing, because the front chest is very white on this bird. So I did a few test swatches, and it's perhaps a little difficult to see there, but this is you're trying to use ink only. So again, it's the canary yellow with just a dash of black and lots of water, just to thin it down, just to give some shade under the bird's chest. So for the grass background where these birds were standing on, I'm using my green ink there. It's called apple green, which is quite a bright green. It's nothing you'd find in nature, and in a way it's quite a blue green. So I'm just putting a little bit there in one of the palettes. And then I'm reaching for the canary yellow as the base to reduce this green down, to take it more on the yellow spectrum, which is more realistic for grass as well. And I am adding more water to thin this colour down. So there in the third palette, I'm actually going to be mixing more yellow, a dash of the green, and quite a bit of water to give quite I want to call it more grass green, but I don't want it to be emerald green or the blue greens or like a tallow green. So just giving it a bit of a colour swatch there on the page to see how it's going to work out. So I made sure that I've actually got plenty of water to thin it down, because with ink it's unforgiving. You can go darker, but you can't go lighter. So I'm just gently there putting some greens below where the grass would have been for these birds. It's I'm not actually using watercolor paper, which I've only discovered now, but it's okay. It buckled a little bit, but I can press it flat later. So I'm just gently putting in the idea, the hint of the background to frame these birds so they're not just standing in midair, and that's the whole idea of doing the background green. So everything's perfectly dry now, and I'm going to write a title for this little sketch in the corner. I researched, and apparently the Latin name for Canada Goose is Branta canadensis, and there are two other options of splitting it further down, but I'm just going to go with the main name, Branta canadensis. Who knew that was even their name? But I'm also writing Canada Goose as well. So I'm also at the same time I've created a map. I just copied it off Google Maps and drew it onto this sketch pad, and this is the map of the peninsula of Vancouver, where, well, it's the 10 kilometers around where I live. And what my plan here is to put on this map, I'm calling it my Vancouver Nature Map, where I was when I drew the geese, or whatever I do next. And this is what I'm doing. So I'm actually finding the cove, which is English Bay, and then just with a little pen there, I'm going to draw the goose at the position where I did this sketch. So in time, this map will develop and have all the little features of all the nature spots I went to in my city, in my local area. I don't live in a countryside. I don't live, in Cornwall or somewhere rambling like that. I live in a metropolitan area. So that's what I thought. But even so, you can find animals and plants, obviously, to draw and sketch. And there's my little goose at the position that's the beach where I was actually sitting when I drew these geese, and it makes sense. And then I'm going to put there the title, the Vancouver Nature Map, in the top left corner. And there we have it. This is now showing you the actual final page in my May section, my first drawing in my Perpetual Nature Journal and hopefully there'll be many more. I'm Alison Hazel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.